Hi, seid ihr bereit für eine neue Folge Brett Time Stories? Der maßlose Brettspiel-Podcast aus dem Westflügel Remscheids und der Dunkelkammer Bochums. Mit Haider und dem Potti. Zwei Typen, die früher mal cool waren. Viel Vergnügen.
Tach Leute, schön, dass ihr eingeschaltet habt zu einer neuen Folge Brett Time Stories. Und ihr wisst es nicht, wir wissen es aber, es ist jetzt Klappe die zweite. Wir hatten gerade ein paar kleine Probleme mit dem Ton, aber daran soll es nicht scheitern. Deswegen möchte ich jetzt auch gar nicht so viel Zeit verlieren. Daniel freut sich schon, er darf nämlich zum zweiten Mal singen, aber diesmal hört ihr es auch. Daniel, let's go.
Yeah, let's go to the beach. People, get ready to fly. So listen to the ocean and long to be free. Free as a bird flying over the sea. People, get ready to fly. Did anybody recognize the song?
So, yeah. David.
I want to say yes because you told me in the previous recording, but no.
In our tutorial.
Oh, man. So David seems like he hates me at this moment, but I hope not. And so then let's start a bit more quick. David, just introduce yourself for the small group of people who doesn't know you.
Thank you. So, hi, I'm David. I'm a game designer and recurring work addict. And I've been a professional and amazingly, luckily, full-time game designer for a couple of years now. Most people would know me as the designer of Anachrony, or in our post-COVID reality, the guy who designed every solo mode. But as always, I have quite many stories about how I'm actually just the one coming up with the ideas of how to transpose games to solos. And then I have an army of highly trained developers and tester volunteers to make those solo modes into a reality. So I can't take all the credit for myself, and I don't want to, because they all deserve the praise. Most recently, I've been hanging around the BGG hotness with Imperium, which I'm first to point out that is Nigel Buckle's brainchild, and he's the genius in front of and behind the throne. And I'm just the guy who bullied him to make the game even better. And last year I had Tekkenu and Tawantinsuyu, two classic Euro games, as they would say. And they're now looking towards expansions. And also, besides Anachrony, I have a few other big works with Minecraft games. Perseverance will be shipping toward the end of the year or early next year. I don't remember what's the latest estimate. And in a few months, we're going to launch Voidfall, our new space 4X heavy Euro hybrid solo co-op competitive all integrated, and it's again Nigel Buckle, Dávid Turzci team effort. So people who like Minecraft, people who like Imperium can now all set their expectations very, very high.
Oh yes, Nigel Buckle and Dávid Turzci is working quite good, I think.
And yes, it's like I've been telling people for years that Nigel is the best designer they've never heard of. The only thing that changed is that now people are starting to hear of him. So he and I have a lot of plans for the future together, because we complement each other quite well. And most people that compliment me tend to be scared of me, and somehow he doesn't. So
okay, sounds quite good. Future project, but one further future project is the expansion of Excavation Earth.
Yes, that got announced literally today. So it's the right time to ask me any exclusive questions about it. It's bringing 2 more races. So the base game had 4, the 4 or 5, I don't know. The first expansion had 2 more. Now this will, the first expansion, the Kickstarter add-ons packaged into a neat expansion for retail. So those had 2 more races and a few more small modules. What this has is one completely new mechanism called the museum board, which you have many ways to interact with. Something else to do with the artifacts besides selling them. You can also exhibit them now. And 2 new races, one of which is obviously interacting with the museum board, and the other which is interacting with the command cards, because that's the only element of the base game that none of the races have meddled with yet.
Cool. So you are a multi-talent, as we can say. So what is your favorite mechanic or your favorite theme? Because you're working on heavy Euros, you're working on deck building, 4X, thematic games. What is your favorite theme or mechanism you're working on?
Early on in my career, I was always joking that I'm trying to learn from Vlada Shvatil and not make two games of the same genre. Okay. That has definitely been diluted since, mostly because I accidentally designed one light family game in the form of Kitchen Rush.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Since then, it has been consistently clear that my talents lie in integrated systems design. And several basically what I'm trying to get to is that I'm not into any one mechanism or any one theme. Certainly some themes are better suited for the kind of games I'm doing, but the two things that make me interested in a game to work on is, what do I care about what's going on in the game, which is a form of interaction with the mechanisms first and then with the other players second. And the strategic choice, which to me is a very precise thing. It means if the game says I can do this, and that, but the do this is like a high level, like a strategy, like a sequence of actions, like a things to build, then at almost every point in the game, I should have a reason to do that thing and to not do that thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I am just trying to investigate this choice system in different ways. And sometimes I come up with a mechanism and shop it around and ask people what sort of theme it will be cool for. Sometimes somebody comes up with a cool theme and I say, oh, I have a mechanism that models that. Sometimes it's all theme and then just trying to find the right key to fit into the whole. So I'm not a mechanism first, I'm not a theme first designer, I'm a feeling first designer, but feeling of strategic choice. So like most people that say experience first design, they tend to talk about much lighter games where the fun is in the experience. Whereas I always say jokingly that I don't even know what fun is. I just know what sort of choice I want them to experience. And then either have a theme inspire a mechanism that creates that choice, or have a mechanism that describes a theme and provides that choice. And the heavier games I get myself into, the more I realize that narrative integration helps people understand the game. So even though all the awesome themes my games are known for have never been my designs, with the sole exceptions of Defense of Procyon 3, like Anachrony's theme was not my idea. I worked on, I'm not the lead designer, but I worked on Dave Kirkhope's Petrichor, which is a notably amazing theme, also completely his idea. Imperium was all Nigel's theme, etc. So I'm not the guy who comes up with the themes, but I take it very seriously and as I get better in my skills, the more and more, to make sure that what I'm doing in the game is also what the game is telling me is being done in its world. And
but that's a very important thing. Sorry when I interrupt you, because a few episodes ago we talked to Vital Lacerda, and he said
I talked to him a lot too.
Yeah, and he said so my games are known as very complex games, but he said if you understand the story behind the game, you will learn the mechanics of the game much more easier. And as you said before, that a narrative complement will help the people to understand the game, because in some episodes I said there are just a few authors or game designers which have skills to connect the story with the mechanics, and I said one of those guys is Vital Lacerda, because everything you are doing in his games has a story element in it, and you understand why are you doing this, or as you said, why are you not doing this? And my first game of you was also Anachrony, and I thought that was my first Euro style game where I had the feeling that the mechanisms are working with the story and the theme. Because of this timeline, you have to can send you some resources during the time, but you have to pay them in the future. That makes sense as you do, and everything what's happening in the game or not happening if you use this mechanic make definitely sense. And as you realize the story and the things which are happening, then you can play the game very quick, as I mentioned.
As always, there'll be another thing I won't take credit for. So that's the genius of the team at Mindclash, most specifically the lead designer, Victor Peter, because like all I know about narrative integration today, I learned by first watching him and Richard Allman do it on Anachrony, which was already, I would like to think, a very good game when I gave it to them, but it wouldn't have been anywhere near successful just on the mechanisms. Like, it was always about time travel. The time travel was definitely not pasted on, but the post-apocalyptic world, the representing the two kinds of action limitation by exosuits that, like, in my prototype, there were action tokens. And if you went to the big board, you spent an action token. If you went to your own board, then you just needed to have an action token. And that's it. And they said, yes, but what if, and at any point you could toss an action token to take money. And they were like, so what if instead of having action tokens, these action tokens are the actual things that your workers are going out with? You know, and it's like, the same mechanism, or like 90% the same mechanism, makes so much more sense when you don't say spend an action token to place a worker on the board, but you say sit the worker into the exosuit and walk to the board. It's the same mechanism, but it makes more sense. Yeah. So,
but this is real perfect when you're open-minded game designer, that you have your own clear view, but you're open-minded that somebody gives you his view and you add that to your game. So did you ever
I very much look at my game design style that of a sponge, based on how my hair looks. Yeah.
So really good, yes.
Because I don't have my own style. My own style is just, I will not let it go until the choices are interesting every way. But whether I put that into a Italian Euro, or which is Tekkeno is the perfect example of, yes, sure, it makes some sense based on the theme, what it's doing, but it's a cube conversion thingy with an obelisk in the middle. You know, it's a classic Italian Euro. It doesn't try to tell a story. Or I can try and do a Vital Lacerda style heavy Euro, where there is a bit more story happening, but you're only interacting with it through the mechanisms. Many people said that Tawantinsiu feels more like a Vital Lacerda than a Daniel Tascini. And that's because that's exactly how I designed it. I was like, Teotihuacan is great. I was one of the developers and the solo designer of it, so I knew the game intimately. Plus, I worked with Daniel on Tekkeno. It's like, I understand what makes his games tick. I'm not saying I can come up with the central mechanism as good as the most of his, but I understand how to put it together to be as interesting. But what if I made it come alive more? And if you start on that direction, you're moving towards a Vital Lacerda game. And then there's the third pole, the Mindclash style game, which Perseverance, that unfortunately most of you haven't played yet, is the ultimate example of, is that it's all the other way around. You just have one interesting mechanism that creates dilemmas, but is not something you would categorize as a genius mechanism in a way you would the dice drafting from pick Simone Luciani or Daniel Tascini game of your choice. But it's just an interesting mechanism in the middle. And then you build a fascinating story. And every single mechanism in that game is there to make you feel the same way like that choice would make you feel if you were standing there. And perseverance, yes, sure, it has actions where you go there and take 2 food tokens and it's called gather and it's not like we're going to put a farming simulator in there, but the risks associated with gaining points via patrol or the curve, the strategy associated with building outposts, or in episode 1, defending against dinos, and do you want to build more luxurious settlements but then risk nobody defending it, or do you want to defend first but then it's better for the others to build? Those are all the choices that the story wants you to feel. And every single mechanism is designed to model the feeling while maintaining the strategic choice. So to me, when I work on heavy Euros, the question is, how Italian, how Lacerda, and how Mindclash can I be within the complexity budget of the target product?
Yeah, you answered some questions I wrote down meanwhile, but I have to mention the question because a friend of us, Euge, who is loving Italian games because he is from Italy, said, if you ever talk to Dávid Turzci, please ask him why he called his game Tavatintsuyu the T game. Why is it a T-titled game? Can you explain that?
Well, first of all, the story behind the T titles, it was not a pre-made plan or anything. Obviously, Daniel had 2 very successful top 100 games, Tolkien and Teotihuacan, and I was obviously the solo designer for Teotihuacan, and thus we've met in 1S many moons ago, and he was working on a new dice drafting game about alchemy. I was there, and he called it Ars Alchemica, which is Latin for art of alchemy. And I was working on a game about the Inca Empire, which I called Cusco. And then we got together and we designed a game about an obelisk called Heliopolis. So not a single T in sight. And then the alchemy game was the first to be ready out of this bunch. And it went out to the partners, and some British-speaking people rightly pointed out that it really sounds like you're talking about the butt of alchemy. So needs a better title. And the most famous historical alchemist is semi-historical alchemist is Hermes Trismegistus. And then Daniel said that he didn't want to suggest this title originally because it's hellishly hard to produce and to pronounce and nobody will like it. But wouldn't it be cool if after Teotihuacan he would make another T-titled game? Sure, I'll get back to Tenochtitlan one day, he said, but that game doesn't exist yet, so let's do Trismegistus first. And the next day, literally the next day during the same retreat, we got an email from somebody republishing Rainer Knizia's and Heliopolis was another, why do we have a Greek title for an Egypt game? Let's rename it to Tutankhamun. And the next time we met, that's when we got the email from the people republishing Rainer Knizia's Tutankhamun saying, hey guys, could you please not try and collide with us that explicitly. And by this time, the concept of T games were already born. And Trismegistus was advertised as Daniel Tascini's new T game, but there wasn't like a active series about it. So, okay, so we can't call it Tutankhamun. Should we call it one of the other pharaohs of the same dynasty? And then I kept joking that no, we can't do that because none of the others starts with a T. And this time we have not just one DT on the box, but 2 DTs on the box, so we must have a T name. And one of my playtesters and often solo developer, John Albertson, jumped into the Egyptian dictionary and found that the word for obelisk in Egyptian is tekenu. So we're like, well, that settles it. And at that point, somebody pointed out that You do know that there's like half a dozen board games called Cusco out there, so you probably want to rename that too. So I went Wikipedia, Incan Empire, and it said Incan Empire, parenthesis, in Incan Quenya language, Tawantinsuyu. I'm like,
perfect.
I typed in, is there a board game called Tawantinsuyu? Turns out there was, but at the time I didn't find it because Quechua words can be transliterated multiple ways. Oh. And they spelled it with an HU, whereas the Wikipedia article I was reading was spelling it with a W. So I didn't find their game because Board Game Geek doesn't have a Did You Mean feature. So, oh, great, there's no game called Tawantinsuyu. Done. And then once we announced it, somebody pointed out that we called ours Tawantinsuyu, the Inca Empire, and there's a game called Tahuantinsuyu, which got later retitled The Inca Empire. I'm like, sorry. So... And like Daniel has a special thanks in the rulebook because he inspired some of the mechanisms. He play tested it. He gave advice. I've always said that I'm not gonna try and design an Italian Euro. Turns out I went a little bit too Lacerda on it, but it's still much more Italian than any of my other big games. Therefore, the publisher eagerly advertised the two together. So I've never claimed that this is a Daniel Deschini game and that I intruded on his series. I don't plan on my next one to start with a T, although one of the ones I'm currently working on might, but again, sheer coincidence. But I know he plans on a few more T-titled games, so it'll still be 90% his stuff in there.
Sounds real fun. A real good story.
I've got stories all day long.
So the first view seems that we all think, oh, there's a strategic genius behind that. All games with a T, but this is
now there is
the real story behind it. Is
now we have a plan, but all good plans come from that works. So.
Yeah,
which is also the story about how I came up with good solo modes. I went, oh, that works, and then rinse, repeat. So
what was your first solo mode? Is one of my
Anachrony, absolutely Anachrony.
Okay. And so you recognized, okay, that works, and then you continued.
And then 3 years later, when after having done 10 others, I went back and went, no, Anachrony solo mode is total trash, and that's why there is a new one in the Fractures of Time expansion, because yes. I was like, this is my most famous game. It can't have my worst solo mode in it. But it was the worst because it was the first, and I was lucky because it was very good by comparison, because what else was there in Euro solo gaming when Anachrony came out? Viticulture. Or Uwe Rosenberg's beat your own scores, but end of sentence.
But David, just a small joke. Are you genius? Are you crazy? Because the border between genius and craziness is very small.
Well, I'm definitely crazy, and I can definitely talk enough to give the impression of a genius. I mostly improve myself by surrounding myself with specifically smarter people and then sponging it all from them.
Because what I was thinking about a bit earlier, you said that there are some games where you or where other people do you said the hard work, so you give them the mechanics, they have to taste it, and you will improve them.
Sometimes they give everything, and all I do is just like on Imperium. When I first played Imperium, every selling point that's in the box right now was already in it. Mm-hmm. All I did was reduce the randomness of the market, unified the keywords around, and even then I just said, I want to unify it, and then Nigel and I worked together. Oh, this is not good enough, this is not good enough, etc. And after the first 5 or 6 nations worked, and those are the 1 and 2 star nations in the box these days, I said, yeah, but could we do something crazier? And then we had a 3-star nation, and then I went, yeah, but could we do something crazier? And that kept happening until we got to the Utopians, which are just flat insane.
Yeah, but that's an interesting point, because another great game designer like Eric M. Lang, so there are also games where his name is on the box, But some people said that, I think he doesn't work very much on this game, but maybe he gave some impressions, or maybe he helped them to improve, and so his name is on the box.
I haven't yet worked with Eric, so I can't comment on his work methods.
No, but that's also a selling point. And is your name also a selling point at this point of time? Because
I would really much hope so, because I've been working my sitting cheeks off to make sure that I have that luxury. Honestly, I still to this day strive to work with people who know more stuff than me, so that I can give them one thing and learn the rest from them. Mm-hmm. So I always joke about that. The goal is to co-design with every top 100 euro designer. I'm not really every, but I have a long list of people I want to. Some, it's been a scheduling issue. Some we're actually working on something. Some we're actually saying we're going to work on something next year. So when I want to talk about how would Vital Lacerda design this game, and how would Martin Wallace design this game, and how would Simone Luciani design this game, I want to understand that, because that's my hobby. Understanding game design. I'm terrible at playing games. If somebody can't beat me in a game by their second play, they shouldn't be a playtester of mine. But that's luckily not impossibly high bar to jump. But what I am good at is I can play half a game of something of this genre and tell you what could possibly not work. It might still, but what has a theoretical chance of failing, and what's the coolest bit that I would put more emphasis on besides the obvious selling points. So the mechanical hotspots, both good and bad. So I look myself as a game design analyst, if you will. Mm-hmm. And that's why I love co-designing, because when I work with Simone Luciani, for example, this morning, then that's me tossing things at him and then analyzing his reactions. And that's a project where I came up with the core idea. So it's more me tossing. But Tekenu was mostly Daniel's core idea. I provided but could we have the thing rotate in the middle? Yeah, but could we have each action fit the boost the next one? Yeah, but could we have a reason to build next to your house, not just my own house? So, but the core mechanisms came from him. But I analyzed them and I said, I understand why you think your mechanism is good, but could it also be good for that other reason? So that's my method.
So what were you working before you became a famous game designer?
I used to be a software engineer, and it was very interesting because on the small scale, like, small team, small project, small look ahead, small planning, I was good at it because it was, drop it in, do crazy seven-handed coding, solve a problem, done. And that meant that I qualified for bigger and bigger projects, more corporate, more money, more everything. And the better I got at it, the more I hated it. Mm-hmm. And I didn't. And at that point, your choice is you either go
earn money or do something you like.
Yes, and I spent enough time. And by that time, an acronym was already published, so I was already running home to work on game designs. And then when the opportunity presented itself to get similar money, but in a hot, cool, new techie company, if I learn all these new techs that I've missed out in the past 3 years while sitting in a cushioned corporate job, and I was like, sure, I'll take it. 3 days later, bye. and I phoned my publishers around and said, hey guys, based on what games we have planned, I know I'm not going to starve to death, but royalties only come at the end of the year and I kind of have to pay mortgage between now and then. So what can I do for you? And they said, well, what can you do? I was like, I don't know. I can test. I can help you write rulebooks and I don't know, maybe design some solo modes just to put it in context, Teotihuacan was the first project I got in this way. And it's my second famous solo mode. So when I was given this chance, other than Anachrony, I had barely anything to show. Like, sure, I've done Die Settlers and Days of Ire, both of which I like to think are well-designed good games with something special about them, but none of them were like, oh my God, we need that guy. So
but
what's my
now
method? Be very lucky.
Now to build the bridge, if we tell, is the name Dávid Turzci a selling point? I would say yes. In Germany, so the situation is like if there is a Lacerda announced, some people say, oh my goodness, all in. And now I think nearly the same with Dávid Turzci titles. So if there is something announced, the crowd or the community goes crazy. So
I'd be the happiest because
excuse me, tell me.
Yeah, so the thing I've always been saying is that if anyone is a fan of one of my designs, I can't promise that they'll be a fan of the next one. I'm trying not to use Uwe Rosenberg again. I don't want to offend any Germans here. So, Stefan Feld games, they have a style. If you like 3 Stefan Feld games, chances are you're going to like the 4th. Sure, you might think that one is not good or that one is not good, but in general, you like them. The Uwe Rosenberg games are even more closer. Somebody from the other end of spectrum, Jamie Stegmaier, when he does completely different games, you know exactly how Jamie Stegmaier thinks, and every Jamie Stegmaier game will feel like a Jamie Stegmaier game. Whether you like it or not, or whether the particular game works for you, will be the X factor, but in general, you understand. Whereas I'm on a mission to keep myself interested, and I bore extremely quickly. Therefore, the only thing linking Excavation Earth to Perseverance to Imperium is that there are bits in it that made me go, yes, but can I make it even more interesting? And therefore, I always suspected that it would take a higher quantity of games to penetrate the market, because no one game will make PLA with the apparently exception of Anachrony, it won't make players go, oh my God, I need every other game like this, because that's not what I do. I will find new problems to tinker with while learning from the previous ones.
But this is, in my view, it is a big advantage that the people you are designing work so good that people say, oh, a Dávid Turzci is always thematic and mechanically so good that I want to experience the game. So nowadays I own a few games by you, and I like all. And as you said, they are all really different. So this is the point I enjoy. I enjoy the games because, as you said, if you buy a Stefan Feld game, you know you have Bogen von Burgund, you have the next game, but they feel like they are the same. So you get, sometimes you can be bored because the games feel mechanically similar, and this is your big advantage in that point. I mean,
that is what I learned from Vlada Shvatil, and that is somebody whom I've worked with and sat in the room for several playtesting sessions online and physical as well, and like that presence of humbling genius. That's why I evaded your question. Do I think I'm a genius? By definition, I can't be, because I've met Vlada Shvatil, and that's how a true genius looks like. And it's like I pitched to him an expansion to his game that he said was unique enough to be worth working on. And then while he was pointing out minor flaws that kept it from being perfect, and I did my usual, well, here's a better idea, here's a better idea, here's a better idea. He went, but what about? And then you feel that the moment he starts saying that sentence, like, obviously, that's what I meant. It's like, how could it? It's that's what I want to absorb from people, is like, how do they get from here to there? And after I've seen him leap from problem A to solution B in a heartbeat 3 times on a tiny little 18-card deck, then the 4th time I could anticipate it a little bit better. And I only had 2 new ideas, and one of which was almost what he suggested. So it's like, that's my design analysis. And once like the other related cool story I tend to tell is that I played Teotihuacan a year before release, right? Because I was on the development team. I put it down to the heaviest gamers in my gaming group at the time, and they hated the game. They were like, oh, this is boring. And I went back to the publisher, naive nobody, with half the game redesign suggestions, change all of these things because the game is terrible. And they were like, nice try, buddy, but no. And Andrei Novak, the lead developer, CEO, everything of Board and Dice, he's also a very good designer developer himself. And we started bargaining on the phone call. Can you change that? No. Can you change that? Well, I could, but I don't want to because it makes it more complicated. And then after a while, we found 2 one-line of rule changes that made people feel like they're doing slightly more. And then I took the same game with only those 2 lines of changes back to the same group that absolutely hated it. And they went, oh, now I can interact with this system. How smart is this system? Oh my God. Why did I never realize that before? And when then Teotihuacan came out and it became a top 100 game within months, I was like, so if those 2.5 lines of changes that Andre and I negotiated out over the phone improved the game this much, why wouldn't I just improve all of my own designs by those 2.5 lines? Like, not those exact 2.5 lines, but why would I spend my effort on anything else other than looking for my 2.5 lines in every single game? And the next game I did was Tawantinsuyu, essentially, and with the endless work of perseverance always hanging in the background. So redesigned Procyon based on, I like the game, but all of those things could be better. Let's redesign. So that's what I can offer to people following my games, is that I am ruthlessly critical of my own games. I hate everything now because I've seen how a good game can turn into a great game. Therefore, if anything is a good game, it's probably not good enough. But because my brain is very niche of a niche, I will find a lot of good things that other people don't enjoy. I think Excavation Earth is perfect for what Excavation Earth is trying to be. And I completely understand somebody not liking it for what it's doing. I can completely understand somebody not wanting to read the page-long player aid of Tawantinsuyu. But those people aren't saying the game is not good. Those people are saying the game is not for them. My job is to pick a game that's for me and make it the absolute best I think I can be. And I'm extremely far from succeeding. But the more projects I'm through, the more smarter people I work with, the more successes and mistakes I make, the more reference points I have for what as good as it can be means. And that's what keeps me going, because Nigel showed me something new with Imperium, and now the numbers are running in front of my eyes, and I'm like, yeah, but could you also try that? Could you also try that? What if we can do that? And obviously this initially caused all my games to be much more bloated. And then when I started getting the comments of this is great, but nobody actually wants to play this much, then now I'm working on, I still have the drive to make it better, but can I make it better without making it bigger? Or once it's good, how can I maintain its goodness while shrinking it? And that's what I'm doing with on a Simone Luciani Heavy Euro that I can only describe as Barrage meets Brass, that it was my original idea, and the game we played this morning is like a half of that size and twice as good than the original prototype was, because it was always up in quality, then half in complexity, then up in quality, then and that's all there is that in this genre, I think.
Would you say that there are some upcoming games or some games you are planning to be that you try to be a bit more risky? Because let's talk a bit about the Defense of Procyon 3. So when you
Defense of Procyon didn't exactly teach me the lesson that I should be risky.
Okay, because let's compare.
I love the game, but where are the people loving it?
And that's a point where I would like to talk about, because when you compare it to other games, if you compare the success about Kickstarter, so we talked about Perseverance, there were I saw 600,000 euro, and so Procyon was a bit slow during the campaign. It was funded. It's a great sum which comes together, but I talked also to the German publisher which will bring it. It was Taverna Ludica Games, and we played it, and I loved the game because for me...
Thank you. It's so rare to talk to people that played it.
Yeah, but I also love games like Vast, and so I love asymmetrical games, and in Vast, it's not as complex as Procyon, but you also have one core rules, small core rules, and then you have one rule book per faction, and that's also the same way as Procyon is working. But
Procyon's common rule book is just the setup. There's no rules.
Yeah, correct. But I think the thing is why some people don't like those games or don't try these games is the 4 different rule books. But the special thing I was realizing as I played Procyon, you get your rule book for your faction. So I played the humans in the space, and I get the rule book. So you have 20 pages with also artworks in it. And when you start playing, after the game, I had the skills to explain every faction in 10 or 15 minutes. And
exactly,
that's the very special thing. And I know why people...
I spent 2.5 years on achieving that.
Yeah. So, okay, if you play it the first time and you have to read the rulebook, I understand why people say, in our WhatsApp group, we had some people who said, "Oh, no, I don't like it. You have to read 4 rule books to play the game, and you have
everyone. You have to read exactly 1."
Correct. And
the thing you can't do with it is you can't have the guy teach it to all 4 of you, because then even if he can or she, if they can handle 4 rule books, teaching 3 rule books to 3 other people is mental overload. Whereas, like, I think people's enjoyment of Procyon, especially the ones playing at the full 4-player count as intended, will be whether they trust me or not when I say in the rulebook, don't bother learning the other 3 factions. I really mean it. Because the information filtering is drilled into the mechanisms, not just in the rulebook. It's not just that I'm not teaching you how the principal manages the cards. The where you can interact with what mechanisms is specifically designed so you don't have to. And so anyone who just reads their own rulebook and then sits down to play, and then, like, the last time I played it with 4 reviewers. I asked all of them to read the rulebook first. Like, I wasn't playing, I was just facilitating on TTS. And I kid you not, in the TTS and everything for first-time players, the game was a little over 4 hours. In the 4 hours, there were 2 rule questions that I didn't answer by second paragraph on your player aid.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, just let me interrupt you at this moment. The player aids are perfectly. So if you read the rulebook, and you never have to look into the rulebook, you just need the player aid, and you can also pick the player aid of your opponent and say, "Oh, I know what you have to do." And so
that's because I can't expect anyone to learn 80 to 100 pages of rules to cross-reference.
Yeah,
I expect everyone to read 16 plus pages of rules, because the 20 pages, not even all rules. The first 4 pages is setup, and the last 2 pages is what you need to know about your enemy on a strategic level. And then you turn to the last page, put the player aid in front of you, and you never look into the rulebook again. One exception, the 4 human buildings, the hospital and the jammer and the whatnot, I forgot to put onto the player aid. So that you have to look up in the rules once. I've already kicked myself for that, but that's it. Why the game did not get more successful? Some part of that blame could possibly lie with the publisher's marketing efforts on that. I don't want to go into that so much more, because I don't like bad-mouthing people, whether they deserve it or not, and because I am not actively working with them anymore for completely different reasons. But Do I think that if Minecraft published the game, would it have been a lot more successful? I don't know, because maybe Minecraft's core audience wouldn't have reacted to it positively. And interestingly, the other big experiment I've done was also with the same publisher, Roman Roll, which I've played Roll and Writes. Then I was asked to help develop design Welcome to Dino World. And while I loved all the people involved, the whole project was a shooting war, because they knew what Roll and Writes were, and I just wanted to make a good game. And apparently these two things are mutually exclusive, at least by my definition. Therefore, I kept coming up with ideas that made it, but you can't do that in a roll and write game. So when the project finished, I was like, now I'm going to make a roll and write game the way I want it. And that's Roman Roll. And most of the negative reactions to it are like, oh, I wish it was a Euro game with tiles. No, you are conditioned to expect that from a Euro game and expect this from a roll and write. And sure, people with big tables and small hands have a smudging problem, but I am one of the least coordinated persons on this planet, and I can play that game without smudging. So, whereas we made a heavy Euro in 35 euros. It has more logical components than Tawantinsuyu for half the price. And it has if you play it solo, the setup time is about 1.5 minutes.
But I think that's a very important thing about Rome and Roll.
I tried something different. And correct. They said, no, we want to go back to the same old. So nobody said Rome and Roll is a bad game. They said it's not the game we wanted it to be.
Yeah, or some people said, I think it's a bit more too complex for a roll and write or something like that.
Because it's not a roll and write. It's a dice drafting heavy Euro game. You should compare it to, I don't know, Trismegistus, not to Gonshen's Clever. That's the trick.
Gotcha. So I think this is one of the problems nowadays. We had a talk about the game Root yesterday. So someone was uttering, Root, if you played it 2 times and you are new to the game, you can't win it, or you have to learn all the 4 factions. So I think then it is not your game. Play other games, but we are always expecting the game we have never played before and want to have the full experience, and we want to have the fully simulation of a game that a faction is totally different to another, but we are not giving the games the chance to experience it. And this is a prejudice I think some gamers do and don't give the game the chance to be what it is. So that is what you mentioned already.
Roman Roll, Tawantinsuyu, Excavation Earth are all games where if you don't play it at least twice with the correct rules, I don't know whether you like it or not. I have no guarantee, and it's not because the game is unpredictable. It's not like the old school Ameritrash games that sometimes work fun, sometimes explode. No, it'll work the same way, but the things that made me like those games is the evergreen choices. So if you've only gone through the choices once, there has nothing evergreen been. There hasn't been anything evergreen about it yet. It's play it again while asking yourself, what have I done last game? Why did it make sense to me now? And what would make sense where I am now? And realizing that the game has so much more to offer, then you'll see what I liked about it. Not if you're in it for the cool looking aliens on the cover, of course you're going to be disappointed by the game. Because that's just because we need pretty things to look at these days. But yeah, like the difference in scores and number of actions taken by a newbie player of Excavation Earth and an expert player of Excavation Earth, in points it's more than double. In number of actions, it's like plus minus 15%. It's like, do you even know where you're getting at? I call it a failure of imagination. If you lose, it's because you didn't know you could go further. But once you played it once, then you can ask myself, how do I do better? And the game will offer up the silver plates. And that's what I do. And I enjoy my playtesters beating the crap out of me using non-cheesy insane combos. Like cheesy insane combos you have to fix because those are problems, but non-cheesy easy insane combos is like, wow, I didn't know my game could do that. And I want other people to go, wow, I didn't know that game could do that. And I want them to go like that on their second, on their third, on their fourth, on their fifth game. And the reason I fell in love with Nigel's Imperium and kept pushing it to the limit, because even what it was at the core was, oh my God, the first 6 games in. And I said, yeah, but what if it was, oh my God, the first 64 games in? And unlike most other systems, this could take it.
Yeah, I'm very excited to play this game for many times, because every single faction feels totally different. Let's get back to Dávid Turzci. I have the experience, yes, that when I taught the game for the first time, it was really felt difficult, because you just have the plan. You just do simple things. You just put on the meeple on the board, but the possibilities are so huge at that time. But
the moment
when I played it,
explains Tawantinsi saying there are 81 worker placement spots, I'm like, yeah, you don't understand the game then. When I played, on any given turn, there are about 3. The rest is just not there. Why would you look at them?
Yes, and then I played it the second and the third time, and I realized when I taught that to my friends, it felt much more easier, and for me, it felt much more easier to understand what I can do meanwhile, and it's. The access was just simple. When everybody knows how the game works on the table, you can play and have so much fun. But this is a problem that people often don't give the chance to say, let's play it the second time, the third time. They just want to play, new game here, new game here. So Dávid Turzci is the best example for play the game for, as you said, for the second or the third time, and you will know, do I like it or do I not? And I like it a lot. Very,
Thank you very much.
It's a brilliant game. Yes.
Just like Vital says that his games are easy on your turn, you either place your worker here or you place your worker there. The way I say it, Tawantinsi is easy because the rulebook is 1 page long. Everything else is just the explanation of that 1 page.
Yes, yes, that's the point. Because at the end, you just place your meeple. But what the meeple gives you
and
return,
the other trick that makes Tawantinsi scary is that people think it's a worker placement game. No, it's a rondel game. It's the other way around. The rondel is the important bit, and the worker placement is the faff. It's like most expert players, barely half of their actions are worker placements, usually not. Like last time I played, 40% of my moves were worker placements, the rest were not. So that's not the point of the game. The rondel is the point of the game. So, and it's just, I am very proud of myself of managed to smoothly link these together, but it's extremely unapparent the first time you play. And that bounces people off. And my job is now going forward of how can I maintain that interest that made me love Roman Roll and Tawantinsi and Excavation Earth, but give it to them in a form of almost like Teotihuacan, because Teotihuacan for me is a medium, like it's not a heavy game. I'm bad at it because I can't create a 7-step long strategy. I'm very bad at depth planning, but what are the things you can do? Why would you do A? Why would you not do A? I can easily summarize in that much. Whereas Tawantinsi is a heavy game because the reasons to buy a statue or not buy a statue is fourfold. So the question is, how can I present the choice systems of Roman Roll, Excavation Earth, and Tawantinsi, which what I consider the 3 mechanically super integrated games I've done recently, but put them in a package that doesn't require crazy people to appreciate. And that's where Mind Clash helps, because Mind Clash is narrative immersion and the very image they started with Tricarion predisposes people to give them more chance. If Anachrony looked like Tawantinsuyu with the exact same gameplay, it would be less successful. And that's not because Tawantinsuyu is not pretty, but because it sets up a different expectation. And I am continuously pushing myself and learning from others and talking with them. Victor Peter being the lead example these days. He used to be a heavier gamer than I am, and now he started pulling me down to lighter games. And now that I got his rhythm, I am also pulling it down games. So it's how can I make people appreciate the smart choices I like while scaring away fewer of them? Because they're not wrong to be scared away. They're just not like me.
You said two interesting things, because for a few minutes we talked about Procyon. You said, so maybe if it was published with Mindclash, maybe it could be a bit more, you don't know if it would be a bit more successful. And now you also said, so Tawantinsuyu doesn't look very pretty, but it's a great game. Would you say
I didn't say it doesn't look very pretty. I said it doesn't promise to be like, it doesn't look like a Vital Lacerda game. If it was a giant box with an Ian O'Toole art, it would have done better.
Would you say that there is a special connection between you and maybe the publisher of Mindclash? Because in my opinion, or in the opinion of the community, Mindclash is a publisher which is known for heavy Euro games with a strong theme and cool mechanics which are working with the theme. And would you say that there are some publishers who will be a bit more connect to you and your opinion and your vision, because it feels like that if Dávid Turzci is working with publishers like Mindclash, the game will be much more successful. And maybe if he's working with
a bit more to their expectation, yes.
Yeah, correct.
Like, so currently my two other main publishers besides Mindclash is Mighty Boards, who've done my historical games, and then when they moved into new cool stuff, then I worked with David Kirkhope on Petrichor, and then they did Excavation Earth, and we recently did Vengeance Roll and Fight, which obviously, again, not my style of game, but Gordon asked for it, and I went, ooh, wouldn't it be cool? And then, and even then that was too strange. Vengeance Roll and Fight is nowhere near as heavy as Roman Roll, but it's too unusual. And the backers loved it. And then when we went to more people, they were like, what do you mean real-time roll and write? That shouldn't be. We don't like that. I'm like, how do you know you don't like that? You've never played anything like that. And so Board and Dice, with whom I do the traditional Euros, if you will. And everyone at Board and Dice loved Tawantinsuyu. And they were like, yeah, sure, let's publish it as big as any Tashini game. But the feedback to Tawantinsuyu is that the core of the core loves it, of the audience, and everybody else went, nah. So going forward, because my job as a professional and Board and Dice's job as a publisher is, and this is not saying make lighter games, this is make more approachable games. So when I'm going to think about how can I make the most out of the least, I'm going to target a Board and Dice Euro with that. And instead of Tekkenu being on the lighter end of that scale, it needs to be on the heavier end of that scale, because Tawantinsuyu was too far on the heavy end. I hope to work with both Vital and with other parts of Eagle Griffin in the future. And they are one of the few people that can publish $100 Euro game without any minis in them. So if I want to make a game with 1 million cardboard and wooden pieces that tells a story and maybe, I don't know, looks good with an Ian O'Toole art, then I'll try to work towards the expectations. Mindclash is the reason I'm not using the word better is because I don't want to say anything not good about the others. The others are great too. The reason Mindclash is special to me is twofold. A, because of their history, they are permitted more stranger things. Because Tricarion, when it came out, was unlike anything else on the market. And Anachrony is a small, medium volume-heavy the Euro game that they made big, and then we supported it together, and then now with all the expansions out, it is a proper beast, but it wasn't always. But their perception was that it was a beast. Therefore, if it was the other way around, if the perception told you that it's a square box Euro and the real game is super heavy, then you don't like it. But by making the perception that this is gonna be scary, but then it's not that scary after all, that makes you feel smart and you love it. So that's the one thing that Mind Clash is special, that they managed to find success while promising to be less accessible and then becoming accessible. The second reason why Mind Clash is special is because initially I learned everything from them, and recently we've been learning everything from each other back and forth. Now I probably not giving away state secrets. Nigel is now staying with us and helping us design the next project after one of the next projects after Voidfall, because he understands it too. Whereas any other designer, mostly when I talk to them about what Mind Clash does to a game, they're like, "Oh my God, I don't want that to happen to my game," because it's a process, it's an understanding. It's not a we publish this game. This is we bring this game to life no matter the cost. If we have to chop half the game off and make the other half be redesigned, it's worth it because we're bringing the game alive. And I learned from working with Victor and Richard and now Nigel what steps make something better. Therefore, there is a higher chance of, if I attempt a Mind Clash-like game, it'll be percentually better than if I attempt somebody else's style game. I hope I can still do those good, but and every time a new Mind Clash game comes out, which is luckily very rarely, so up to now, because that keeps it to be an event. But what I've been telling people is that I think Perseverance is the best Mind Clash game to date. And Tricarion has been my favorite game for years. And I think Perseverance is better. But Perseverance achieved this bestness because it's zero compromises. You want to learn it? Sure. There's episode 1. Learn it. It's a fun game. It's a great game. It has a unique mechanism that none of the others have. Then go learn episode 2. If the difference is so much that I can teach episode 1 in 30, 40 minutes, which is on par with Anachrony plus minus 5 minutes. I can teach episode 2 in more than an hour. It's insane. But if you've just played episode 1, you remember everything, I can teach the difference in 15 minutes. Because it makes perfect sense. So Perseverance is huge. It's heavy. It's interactive. It's, I don't want to say it's mean because it's not mean. It's mean compared to, like you don't attack the other player, but like every single action you make matters. If you mess one up, you've made a mistake and that'll show. And on average, every player makes 1 or 2 mistakes in the game. But it's big. It's not trying to appeal to anyone. It's saying, this is the best game we think there is. Do you like it? Your choice. With Voidfall, we said, we can't go further. We can't do an even more than Perseverance. If you do even more, so very few people will bother to experience it the second, the third, the fourth game as we want them to, that we're gonna start declining in returns. So what's the least we need to keep to feel like the same epic heavy Euro with all the perfect choices? So sure, Voidfall is an epic heavy Euro, but the Perseverance just in multiplayer has 2 20-something pages rulebooks, and then another 20-something pages rulebook for solo, and then another 10-something pages for the playing all the episodes together, the Chronicle mode. Voidfall has a 40-something page rulebook that includes the competitive, the cooperative, and the solo to integrate it. There is no read this for solo, read this for competitive. You just read the whole rulebook and you start playing. And like, if you play competitive, skip that 1.5 pages. That's about it. So it's integrated. It's all the choices are in front of you. On your turn, play 1 card. As Vital would say, it's simple. But the moment you play that card, your choices go, which is how Tawan Tensei makes you feel. But at no point in Voidfall do we ask you, go read this one page of insanely dense play rates. It just says, pick a card. You don't know what to do, pick that one, it'll be fine. And because it's a Mind Clash game, nobody will expect it to be super easy. But as far as heavy games go, it's easier. Therefore, they'll get to the feeling smart part sooner. And that's what heavy gamers mostly consider liking a game. It's either I feel smart for having understood it, or I haven't understood it yet, but I'm getting closer to it, and I like that feeling. So it's not like the story helps, but that's what separates, to me, thematic gaming from heavy Euro hardcore strategy gaming, is that in one you're in it for the system, in the other one you're in it for the excitement. And I think as far as strategy and systems choices driven interest goes, Voidfall, it's like not 100% finished yet. The competitive game is have been stamped, but I'm sure, knowing Mind Clash, will develop it for a few more months after the Kickstarter. But I am confident that when we're finished, that will be the best game I have ever worked on. Because it's the pinnacle of how can I be as smart as Tawan Tensei, how can I be as epic as Anachrony, as thematic as Perseverance, while also trying to be a bit less than them. And Nigel's genius that you've seen on Imperium is on full display here. So
I'm really looking forward to what this will be. It's still a mystery for us, for the audience, but not for you. Is it close to the finish line, the game? Do you think
the prototype components, at least of the competitive game, are going to the prototype printer so that the reviewers can get their copies in like matter of days. So yes, we've signed off on the competitive game. We are still testing the cooperative and the solo game like 3 times a week, because I'm not yet happy with anything other than 2-player at this point, but we'll get better.
Okay. So you're perfectionist. So you're passionate and perfectionist. On how many projects are you working meanwhile? So this
Define
was one question.
Working on. How many games am I actively designing and iterating?
Yes, maybe
4 or 5. How many games am I overseeing the solo mode development of? Another 4 or 5. How many games am I sending out emails to other people saying, so let me know when you're sending that Excel sheet so I can send you my thoughts? Another 4 or 5. And how many games are there in my mind that I really want to design and in my spare time make notes about, but in my working hours try to banish them from my head so that I can finish the other? About another 10. So every 3 or 4 months, I create a list of all games that I should check up on. Last time I did that, it was in the high 30s. So, but that doesn't mean I design 30 games a week. It means that there are 30 games filed into my brain. And so then sometimes they pop
in
back
your
up.
Genius. In your genius / crazy head, we find
more emphasis on the crazy head. It's more about my ability to endlessly reposition information. I talk a lot at people because I can hang up one meeting, join a new meeting about another game, open an email to remember the things, and then talk for an hour about it, and then close that meeting, and then go into a meeting to another game. Did I just design 3 games in 3 hours? No, I didn't. But I worked on 3 games in 3 hours, and all of the games did something. It's just shuffling information in this madhouse.
How many hours are you spending on developing games? Have you a timetable a day, or are you just eat something, working on the game? And
that's how I used to be up until about 2 months ago. You might have noticed I did not take too many interviews in the past 2 months. That's because I managed to finally overboil. So now at least one of the weekend days is fully non-work, and the other one has to be limited to four-ish hours. And I'm trying to limit most weekdays to under 10. But like 8 would be optimal, but I tend to hit the 10 most days. So it's about 60-esque hours a week, give or take. And that doesn't include like sleeping, which is actually, I have woken up. I have failed to go to sleep until I've written down the idea in my head, or I have woken up with typed up notes on my phone, on my pillow that I've apparently typed while in the middle of the night while I woke up for half an hour, but was too sleepy to remember. So, yeah. Crazy person, as I said.
Put your mobile next to your bed, and then you talk into it. Idea for my memo, so we'll never forget. Yeah, crazy. So I expected that when we started our talk today, because you work like a passionate, and that you're so loving the game. So you're loving the part you're working on. So I appreciate that, and I think we can expect many Dávid Turzci games in future that will bring fun to our homes.
Exactly, and since as all my adult co-designers tell me that do this now before you have kids, I'm like working on it.
So is there a game we can expect and you never talked to someone so far?
I mean, I think the stuff I've said about the half barrage, half brass game today is probably the most I've said about that game ever. But that's because I've had a playtest last Friday and I felt really good about it. So now I'm like fairly confident that I won't have to toss out half the game. So yeah, but that one hasn't even been signed yet. So I don't even know what publisher will bring it in what year. I just know that Simon and I have been having a lot of fun with it. Publishers tend to tell me, oh, come pitch your games. And I'm like, do you honestly think I have a time to design a game that nobody has wanted to at least appear to sign it yet? So, but once it is with a publisher, then I can't talk about it until they do. So I can always advertise my next project, but that project I'm either in the late stages of or long finished. So right now, the life is mostly about Voidfall, and then I'm counting down the days until the marketing and sales department of Osprey decides whether Imperium is worthy of expansions, and if so, how many. Because I think I've compiled like a list of 12 civilizations that, hey, Nigel, I had a crazy idea for this civilization. Hey, Nigel, I had a crazy idea for this civilization. And then, if I have to wait an hour for lunch or something on a Saturday, then I just pull out a paper and quickly design 10 more cards for, I don't know, the Sassanid Empire's heavy cavalry or whatever. It's like, it's just running in the back of my brain. I don't even count it as work anymore. So like,
first for the German audience, the German version is announced. So the German Spieleschmiede will deal with Imperium Legends and Classic.
Excellent choice.
And I hope I can translate it, or I do the correction when I don't translate it. So I'm working on it. Yes, I appreciate that game. Very, very good game. Will be real fun for the German audience.
I hope they love it. If they love it at least as half as much as I do, it's already going to be a bestseller.
So, David, what could be interesting is you said that you are a professional game designer, so it's your main work. So there are so many people who are dreaming of this and who are dreaming to be a professional game designer. But could you tell something about the business, how it works? So you said, okay, I announced or the game Imperium is now published, and now maybe in a few weeks the publisher say, hey, okay, we need expansion. So do you still have fixed contracts with the publishers, or are you mainly free so that these publishers just say, so if you have an idea, you have to send them first to us, and if we don't want to publish, you can give it to other ones? So give some deep views into your everyday business. Because on the one hand, you have the ideas, you have the games, you have the mechanics, but on the other hand, it have to pay your life that you can buy some nice things. So talk a bit about it.
As I mentioned, in the backstory that when 3.5 years ago when I quit my day job, I said, "Hey guys, this is looking like a good year, but I need to pay mortgage until the royalty checks come here." So I have maintained an ongoing, I call it a consultancy contract with 3 publishers. The Mindclash and Board and Dice has always been the first 2, and the third one has been fluctuating around. Right now, it's Eagle Griffin is my third one, and of course, I work very closely with Mighty Boards as well, but they don't use my consulting services. So those 3 publishers, they pay me a small fee every month. Mm-hmm. That's absolutely regardless of what games I design. In return, almost every single Board and Dice Euro game out in the past and future plus minus 3 years has a solo mode from me in it. I have signed games for them. I played a friend of a friend's or the other game designer in my playtest group. I played their game. Oh, yeah, that's exactly what they want. I took it to Board and Dice. Board and Dice said, let's change this, and that. And so it's like I work for the publisher, but I'm not an employee of the publisher. I'm not I don't have an exclusivity contract. I always very carefully selected the 3 publishers to never have a doubt which one of them should publish a game. Mm. Until most recently, PSC was the third one. As I said, now it's Eagle Griffin. If I design a game tomorrow, nobody would think a second about it, whether it should be an Eagle Griffin game, a Board and Dice game, or a Mindclash game. It's obviously all 3 of them. Mm. So do all my games get auto-signed? Hell no. Board and Dice rejected 2 of my games over the past 7 months, causing me a lot of stress of, okay, then what the hell should I design? But that stress taught me how to design the third one better. And now I'm very hopeful that the third one will work. So it does help a lot, because what I don't do is pitching meetings. Sometimes when there's a new, well, not necessarily new, but new to me, sexy publisher that I want to work with, then I have to, offer myself in with a cool game that fits them, blah, 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 blah. It mostly, and most of the games that are published by whichever publishers I'm either consulting with or plus Mighty Boards, is very much like, hey guys, what game do you need in 1 or 2 years? What hole do you have? Do you have a designer that has a half a game for it and you need a experienced, ruthless executioner to beat it into a game? It's like designing for a product. It's what can I do for you? It's not what can you do for me? Is this something that would work for game designer Joe trying to break into the business? Definitely not. Because nobody will pay any number of money every month to game designer Joe on the maybe he'll be useful to us. So am I lucky as hell? Yes. But this, basically, Anachrony was a calling card enough, and Board and Dice have seen me up close on Dice Settlers. Those were both before I went full-time, that they knew that if given resources, I will deliver something that will be better than not having it. And as exponential curves go, once I didn't need to show up at the office to pretend to work for 6 to 8 hours, suddenly I could make more games. Once I had the chance of working with better game designers, suddenly I learned how to design better games myself. So I don't know how to start. No idea. But so these days I still get my monthly checks from these publishers. I occasionally take a solo design, which is, as I said, more of a solo consultancy, and then Nick Shaw, John Alberts, and David Digby and the others work on it, and I edit it and overview it and then send a check, which is why I can be cheaper than the competition in solo game design, because they have to build their hours. I don't. I have to build my ideas. my knowledge, so that makes it cheaper. But that's like the month-to-month cash, and then at the end of the year, I go around and saying, so that game, and then I still have contracts, I still get percentages after my games. Some of them I get actually smaller percentage than what a designer of my effort and recognition would or should get, but that's because they also pay the fixed fee. So it's like stability versus, and it works really well for me because it removes the stress. It allows me, I do essentially the hellever I want. And as long as the publishers see some benefit from it, I'm riding the beaches. So
I think this is really important for the creativity part, that you have your head free for working on those processes and not thinking about how can I have a meal today and how do I get contact to a publisher.
I have to keep it in mind, because if I get nothing done in 7 months, then that means 2 years from now, I'm going to be 1 game out.
Okay.
And if I'm 1 game out, that's okay, because I've probably done 1 game too. Then it's probably not my best game out. It's my 4th best game out that year. So whatever, the top 3 will cover it. But if I miss too many beats, then eventually the top 3 won't cover it. So there is a pressure. Yes, it's very much my living, and I very much have to keep going, but I pick what I like, and I could just say tomorrow, no, I don't want to design a game for you, bye. But obviously I've picked my publisher partners in a way that I know that what they want is not something I wouldn't want doing. So it's lovely. And
okay, so David, I enjoyed it really so far, but I'm the philosopher of us, between Potty and me. And sometimes I have a philosophical question. Where do you see yourself in 5 or 6 years? Will you still be a game designer that is so passionate and works on so many processes, or you lean back and think you are in working for a publisher, in consulting or something like this? What are your future plans? Maybe where do you see yourself in?
Right, like for the next 2 to 3 years, while I'm trying to slow down, I am slowing down quite slowly. I am taking on 1 more small projects. I am starting designing 1 more cool idea less. But I'm still very much burning on 105%. Obviously, the family will shift priorities, which is now not indeterminately distant milestone, but and the only role model I've ever had in this career, Vlada Shvatil, hasn't put out his own big game in 4 or 5 years, and I don't think he's any less passionate about it. Last time I talked to him 2 years ago, oh my God, COVID has been so long. But hey, if what Mindclash or what Board and Dice or both what they're doing keeps working and they want me around, I could entertain myself just on that alone. I don't have to do the others. And if business is booming, then maybe one day any 1 or any 2 publishers will pay enough for me to not need anyone else, which is, I assume, what Eric Lang is doing. But what I can do is every 2 years make a course correction and go along with it. And
okay.
Especially since everything I do is realized 2 years later. So if I stopped working at the end of, if I started 0 new projects right now, I would still have games coming out for the next 2 years. Never mind expansions, which are actually half the fun, because touching my own already working systems and making them somehow more better and having to worry less about keeping them simple because it's only the expert players coming back for more is like my Legoland. It's like, I just want to go in there and have fun. So, you'll see with Excavation Earth, you'll see with Tekkenu. Hopefully, someday soon you'll see it with the Imperium. Nothing exists yet. I'm not teasing any expansions. But yeah, I always look to the future. I'm always excited. I'm often too excited. I'll try to take care of myself so that none of my games go up in price because I'm dead.
So, yeah, this is the dilemma that when you're working 105% each day, and as you in the prequel, as you said, you are learning to say no, not right now.
Very much so.
Thanks for your interest, but I can't solve that at the time. So it's really difficult to say no, I think, really in the business.
Because it's all exciting. It was my passion long before it was my wallet. So how could anyone say no to smart and successful people asking my opinion and wanting to pay money for it? It's like, but no, it's working on the long-term goals are now what's important.
Cool. Daniel, do you have some additional questions?
No, I'm running out of questions because
I mean, that was a good philosophical note to end on. I've already advertised all the projects I wanted to advertise, and I'm fairly certain nobody wants me to sing. So
yeah, there was so much information. I've also brain overload. There are so many cool stories and information about the game. So I think today we are not. And our podcast is not named Brett Time Stories, it's named Dávid Turzci Stories. So
please don't flatter me, don't do it.
Just kidding. I think it's very, very interesting for the audience, also for us. And so thank you that you had time to talk to us. And I hope, and hopefully it won't be the last time that we met.
I would say call me anytime. I promise next time not to cancel you twice.
Okay.
No, this is the final episode before our summer break, and we announced that there will be a big guest in the last episode before we get in our summer holidays. And I think when this goes online for the audience, they will participate and they feel what we expected, and it was a great pleasure so far with you.
Thank you very much, and I hope that somewhere in the middle of my crazy rambling they saw some nuggets of golden truths.
Yeah, so everything's fine. Maybe a last question. So this year, so now at this moment, the plans are really straightforward that the fair, so that the Spiel will be this year. Will you participate this year?
I'm heading to Gen Con and Spiel this year.
Oh, cool.
I'm already half vaccinated. I'll be fully vaccinated soon. So I miss my people so much. So I'm coming.
Yeah, for sure. Very cool. So maybe now we know that Vital Lacerda is coming, you and Martin Wallace. So Daniel and I have to drink some beers. We have to.
Oh, yes.
So I think we have to meet. At the start of this episode, as you were talking about stuff that you are developing and Vital Lacerda. So do you know?
I've just finished the solo mode for his new game last week. So yes.
Oh, pretty cool.
I talk to him every now and then.
I had an idea for new videos on my YouTube channel. Do you know on MTV there was it's in the past there were a series which is called I don't know Good Fight, Good Night, where with Johnny Gomez and was
I feel this is either a cultural or a generational or both difference, because your words are making no sense to me.
I had to look. Good Fight, Good Night. It was called Celebrity Deathmatch. And I had the idea to produce Celebrity Deathmatch with board game designers. And as you were talking, I saw some pictures where you and Vital in a tag team match versus some other guy. So maybe that could be funny.
My problem with it is that most of the people who are from my kind of the arena I'm already working with, as last time we had an Essen in 2019, Martin Wallace and Richard Breeze told me the same story one day apart, saying, "Hey, I just ran into Martin Wallace / Richard Breeze, and he told me that he was working with Dávid Turzci," and I said, "What? Me too." So yeah.
Yeah, I will not promise, but maybe I will do something like that. So
I mean, I'm happy to. If anyone asks, my lifetime goal is that somebody starts the Turzci number, which is the bacon number or the Erdős number of board game designs of who has co-designed with whom, and because I want to co-design with all of them. So
Dávid Turzci designed the double of Rainer Knizia's games.
Yeah, the
maybe if you count only completely unique designs.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect ending, David. Thank you that you had time for us. And,
thank you very much, and I look forward to the death matches.
Yeah, I also. Stay safe and healthy. Danke, dass ihr alle eingeschaltet habt, Leute. Bis zum nächsten Mal. Good fight, good night. It's Johnny Gomez. Bye.
See you.